Welcome in, everyone. Ready to dive into the world of artisanal dairy?
Absolutely. Going beyond just enjoying cheese, we're talking about making it a career.
More than just career advice, this is about what it really takes to succeed in this field.
From that first interview to building a career you love.
Picture this.
Yeah.
You're in the interview, the aroma of aged Gouda is practically wafting in from the next room.
And they hit you with, so how did you get interested in dairy products making?
It seems like such a simple question.
It is, but it's also your chance to really stand out.
To go beyond, oh, I just love cheese.
Exactly. This is where you connect your passion to the work.
Tell a story. Were you raised on a dairy farm?
Did you have a cheese-making grandma who inspired you?
Find that spark that makes you memorable.
And that's something RoleCatcher's AI can actually help with.
Oh, really?
How so?
Their platform digs into your experiences. Maybe you've never even worked with cheese professionally.
But you spent every summer on your aunt's goat farm. Exactly. RoleCatcher identifies those keywords, those experiences, and helps you connect them to what employers are looking for.
So it's like having a personal cheese career matchmaker.
Exactly. Now, let's say you've nailed that passion.
You've got them hooked on your cheese origin story.
The next question might be, how do you ensure the quality of dairy products?
And that goes way beyond just, well, I make sure it tastes good.
Right. This is about consistency, safety.
So instead of just saying I'm detail-oriented, what's a concrete example you can give?
Love that. Did you ever have to troubleshoot why a batch of yogurt didn't set right?
Or maybe you had to adjust a cheese recipe based on the milk's fat content that day.
Those real-world examples, even from home experiments, are gold.
It shows you understand the how and why, not just following a recipe blindly.
And speaking of staying curious, a good interviewer might ask, how do you keep up with changes in the dairy industry?
Because, let's face it, artisan cheese making is evolving. What new techniques are out there?
Are there new regulations? New types of equipment?
Exactly. So, mentioning specific industry publications.
Workshops you've attended?
Maybe you follow certain cheesemakers online.
It shows you're invested in this world, always learning.
And don't just name drop, right? Explain what you learned.
Yes. Did a new aging technique blow your mind? Did a debate about raw milk cheese ethics make you rethink your process?
Show them you're not just making cheese. You're part of a larger conversation.
And that's where RoleCatcher comes back in, by the way. Their AI doesn't just help with your resume.
It gives feedback on your interview skills, too.
Yes. Imagine practicing your answers and getting pointers on your tone.
Are you speaking clearly and confidently?
Even things like pacing and body language. And this feedback is tailored for dairy-specific roles.
That's amazing. It's like having a dairy career coach in your pocket.
Exactly, because let's be honest, if you're not enthusiastic about artisan dairy,
Your interviewer is going to pick up on that.
100%.
Okay, we've talked about why you love cheese, how to show you're always learning.
But what about the actual hands-on skills? How do you convey those in an interview?
Let's say they ask, can you describe your experience with pasteurization and homogenization?
This is where you don't want to just give textbook definitions.
Right. This is about the nitty-gritty. What specific equipment have you used?
Have you worked with both cow's milk and goat's milk?
Have you experimented with different pasteurization temperatures and their effects on flavor?
Sharing those details, even if it was a small-scale setup, shows you have real-world experience.
It's one thing to read about making cheese.
It's another to have actually done it, dealt with the challenges firsthand.
Speaking of challenges, what about equipment maintenance and repairs?
Things are bound to break down, right?
So tell me about a time your cheese press went on the fritz the day before a farmer's market.
What did you do? How did you problem solve?
Did you have to get creative?
Did you call in a professional but use that opportunity to learn?
Show them you can handle those curveballs.
Resourcefulness is key.
Absolutely. Now let's talk food safety. It's non-negotiable.
So when they asked, how do you ensure compliance with food safety regulations?
You need to be ready.
This isn't just about keeping a clean workspace.
Right. It's about understanding HACCP principles, sanitation protocols.
Maybe even traceability systems if you're working with a larger operation.
And don't just rattle off acronyms. Explain why these protocols matter to you.
Show them you're not just following rules because you have to.
But because you understand that food safety is directly tied to people's well-being.
It shows a sense of responsibility.
Okay, we've covered a lot, but there's one more question that often trips people up, especially as they gain more experience. How do you manage inventory and supplies?
It might not seem glamorous, but it's essential for any dairy operation.
Because running out of rennet at a critical moment? Not ideal.
Exactly. So think about how you approach forecasting needs, managing stock levels,
Maybe even negotiating with suppliers, especially if you're sourcing local ingredients.
and have you ever had to deal with a sudden shortage? How did you adapt?
Maybe you had to get creative with your recipe or find a new supplier last minute.
Those experiences are valuable. They show you're adaptable and resourceful.
Okay, so we talked about inventory, but what about managing people?
That's interesting because even in a small dairy operation, you're likely working with others.
Other cheesemakers, farm workers, delivery drivers.
Exactly. So think about times you've had to delegate tasks, resolve conflicts, or motivate a team.
Maybe you had to train a new hire on sanitation procedures.
Or maybe there was a disagreement about production schedules and you had to find a compromise.
Those experiences, even if they weren't in a formal management role, are still relevant.
They show you can work effectively with others, which is crucial in any industry, but especially in a collaborative environment like artisan dairy.
Hmm.
And don't forget those soft skills, right? Being a good listener, communicating clearly,
Giving and receiving feedback constructively.
all essential for a healthy work environment.
Okay, we've covered the technical, the safety, the teamwork.
Let's not forget sustainability.
Right, because it's more than just delicious cheese, it's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. So when they ask, how do you incorporate sustainable practices into your work?
Be ready to talk about it.
Are you sourcing your milk locally?
Are you mindful of water usage in your process?
What about waste reduction? Composting?
Even if your current operation isn't perfect, talk about your values.
Maybe you're researching energy-efficient equipment.
Or exploring biodegradable packaging options.
Show them you're thinking about these things.
Because it matters. Okay, we've covered a lot of potential interview questions.
But there's one more we have to talk about. It's a bit trickier.
Oh, lay it on me.
Can you describe your experience with recipe development?
Ah, okay. So this is where things get really creative.
Exactly. Now, not everyone has tons of experience developing their own cheese recipes.
Right, especially when you're first starting out.
But have you experimented at all?
Maybe you tried aging a cheese with different herbs.
Or tweaked your grandmother's yogurt recipe?
It's about showing that curiosity, that willingness to try new things.
And even if an experiment didn't go as planned?
Which, let's be honest, happens to the best of us.
Absolutely. Talk about what you learned from it.
Did a batch of cheese get too moldy? What did that teach you about humidity control?
Those failures can be the best learning experiences.
Okay, so we've talked about technical skills, sustainability, even a bit of recipe experimentation.
But many artisanal cheesemakers are also entrepreneurs, right?
Building their own businesses from the ground up.
So be prepared for the question. How do you see the future of the dairy industry evolving?
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is. It's a chance to show you're not just skilled at making cheese.
But you're thinking about the bigger picture.
Exactly. Are you excited about online cheese markets?
Do you see the potential for agritourism?
What about the challenges? Are you concerned about climate change's impact on milk production?
Or maybe you're thinking about the competition from larger dairy operations.
It's okay to be honest about your concerns, you know?
Because it shows you're engaged, you're thinking critically about the future of this industry.
And you're not afraid of a challenge.
Exactly. Now, let's say you're at a farmer's market selling your cheese.
And a customer walks up, totally unfamiliar with artisanal dairy.
They ask you, what's so special about this cheese? What do you say?
It's not just about rattling off a list of ingredients.
Right, this is where you get to paint a picture with your words.
Exactly. Describe the aroma, the texture.
The way the flavors linger on your palate.
Connect those sensory details to the story behind the cheese.
Where did the milk come from? What makes your cheese-making process unique?
Sharing those details, it transforms the experience for the customer.
It's the difference between reading a label and having a conversation.
Exactly. And speaking of conversations...
You mean about interview prep?
Yes. We've covered some common questions today, but every interview is different.
There's always the potential for a curveball.
And that's where RoleCatcher can really help.
Because they have a crystal ball that predicts interview questions.
Well, not exactly. But their AI analyzes job descriptions.
To see what skills are most important for that specific role.
Precisely. It's like having a personal researcher combing through hundreds of postings.
And tailoring the advice to your dream job. I like it.
It goes beyond just keywords, too.
Oh,
How so? RoleCatcher can sometimes identify the underlying skills employers are looking for.
Even if they're not explicitly stated in the job description.
Exactly. Like having a secret decoder ring for job postings.
It's like having a secret weapon in your back pocket.
Exactly. Giving you that competitive edge.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. From the nitty-gritty of cheesemaking to the broader trends shaping the industry.
And how to really ace that interview.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up our deep dive today,
Any final words of wisdom for our aspiring cheesemakers out there?
well, I think it's important to remember this career path. It's not always easy.
Right, there are going to be challenges.
Long hours sometimes.
Maybe a batch of cheese doesn't turn out as planned.
Exactly. But it's that passion.
That dedication to the craft.
That's what will ultimately drive you forward.
I love that.
So find joy in the small victories.
Celebrating that perfectly aged cheddar.
Connecting with your customers at the farmer's market.
Being part of a community that loves cheese as much as you do.
Exactly. Those are the things that make it all worthwhile.
Beautifully said. So, to our listeners, whether you're just starting to explore the world of artisan dairy,
Or you're a seasoned cheesemaker looking for your next adventure.
remember to embrace the journey,
With all its twists and turns.
because that's where the real magic happens.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. And until next time,
Happy cheesemaking.
happy cheesemaking, everyone.